Hey everybody, it's Alan Brochstein from 420 Investor and New Cannabis Ventures with your weekly video update of what's going on in the cannabis market from our perspective. The goal of this video is to summarize the New Cannabis Ventures newsletter and give a little bit more context to the stories that we found most important over the past week. This week, I like to start off these videos with just a little bit of discussion of the market. And the good news about this week was we did hold the lows that were set for the Global Cannabis Stock Index in September. But beyond that, it was a pretty rough week. We ended with 4 straight losses. And last week, I talked about the relative strength in the MSOs. And while they declined this week, they did continue to show better relative strength. So I think that was really the story of the market this week. The lows held, continued stronger relative performance from the MSOs. And it was a week where, we did see some important news, which we obviously covered. As a reminder, the newsletter, which we publish on Sunday mornings, we've been doing this for the last 6 years, believe it or not. And you can, if you want, you can sign up and have it sent to your email box every Sunday morning when we publish it. But you can also find it online, and I have a link in the summary here. But each week, in addition to summarizing by link what we thought was the most important news, we also like to discuss what we think is an interesting topic. And this week, we kind of revisited a topic, and this is something we've been talking about a lot for the last year. It first started in November, where we saw a sudden slowing in cannabis sales, but then things were fine in December and January. It happened again in February. And so this summer was really tough. So we spent some time kind of talking about the near-term challenges for cannabis sales within various markets. And then at the same time, concluding that investors should be careful about extrapolating what's going on right now with these, with the growth compared to a year ago. We'll be publishing either Sunday night or Monday our monthly review of the markets that BDSA covers, but it was a tough month in August, to say the least. So that's how we started off, and then again we publish curated news. That's the majority of what we publish, and we have minimum thresholds. We don't run stories about this company raised $3 million or that company had $5 million in revenue. So we do have minimum thresholds, and obviously we get a lot of earnings reports, but those tend to be, when the December year-end companies are reporting. And so we're in kind of the off-season right now, but we did have one earnings report. It was Aurora. And, I have a reputation for being pretty hard on the large LPs, and it's a well-deserved reputation. Although I'm wearing my tweed t-shirt today because I like it. Not a fan of the stock, to be perfectly blunt. But the Aurora report, to put a little context behind it, I'm sure some people were surprised to see the stock rally. It was not a good report. It wasn't a bad report. And I think that was really the story. It wasn't a bad report. We're so used to the reports being really bad. I mean, it wasn't bad compared to what was expected. I guess that's the right way to say it. But, I cover what's now 27 names at 420 Investor, and this week, going into the week, I had 29. I dropped Aurora. That tells you what I think about it. I just don't find that company to be worth following from my perspective. Not at New Cannabis Ventures, of course we'll cover it there, but not one of the companies I really care that much about anymore. And I've been watching them not for that long, really only since 2013. So I think not easy to say goodbye to something you've invested that much time and effort into, but I think that if you're looking for context, the big story on Aurora is how, you had the CEO a couple months ago talking about, it's right in his wheelhouse, this CPG effort that so many of the competitors are lacking, and they're going to pick up share in the Canadian adult use market because he's so good. Well, the story this quarter is, well, we don't care about adult use anymore. We're going to be a medical company. So go figure. But anyway, that was the only earnings story. We also cover two other types of stories pretty extensively for these curated press releases. And one of them is capital raising, and we saw three of those, right? So I think this was a really nice undercurrent. So the first one that comes to mind is Goodness Growth entered into a sale leaseback with IIPR to fund their New York expansion. So this gets back to a big story, I think, which is, everybody knows about these opportunities in the cannabis space, but how are they going to be paid for? Are these companies going to issue stock? Because if that's the case, investors might want to wait for that and then buy into the future growth. So this is yet another sign of sale leaseback money being available, and reduces the likelihood of of Goodness Growth having to sell stock to do that build out. So that was one. Another capital raise that just blew away people with the terms was TrueLeaf. Now, TrueLeaf is truly one of the best cannabis companies out there, so others won't be able to do exactly like this, but 8% for 5 years with no warrants. Wow. That's all I have to say on that one. But again, expansion ahead without equity dilution. So, and then the third one, you've probably never heard of Polaris Equity Fund, but it's a private REIT, and they raised, I believe, 70 million. I forgot, there was a big number. It's probably not 70. I'm sorry. I'm not remembering, but you can look in the newsletter. It's in the headline. They raised a lot of money at a low interest rate for 5 years, 7%. So again, this is money that's available to be put into sale leasebacks, or I think in their case it's mortgage debt. I forget. But in any event, again, capital is available to the American cannabis operators. So capital raises, M&A, and quarterly earnings are the kind of things that we report on. There may have been an M&A story. I'm not remembering right now. I know TrueLeaf closed Harvest, but that was a little bit of a surprise, by the way, the timing, I believe. But if there's another M&A story that I'm forgetting that we included, I apologize, but there may have been. And I may remember it in a minute. The other content that we run and that we include in the newsletter always are our proprietary content. And again, this consists of either articles that we're writing about some of our proprietary resources, like our 7 indices or our revenue tracker, or the interviews that we run, or sometimes state or federal markets as well. And so like next week, you'll see my Illinois update, for example. And this week, we only ran one interview. I'm not sure what happened with our scheduling, but it was on Dewey. It was Dewey Scientific, and Dewey Scientific is they hold a license in Washington, and then they're also working with companies to improve their genetics. And the reason why we interviewed them was this is a company that Scott's Miracle-Gro's investment arm, Hawthorne Collective, invested $3 million into recently. And so that was an interesting interview. And then I guess there were 4 articles on our 7 indices. And you can read those. I'm not going to summarize them, but that's one of the things I enjoy doing every month, which is trying to give some context to our readers, like what's really going on in the market. And so kind of looking under the hood and taking a look at these indices. And those 4 articles, one was on the Canadian market, one was on the Global Cannabis Index, one was on ancillary, and one was on the American Cannabis Operators Index. So 4 different articles, kind of looking under the hood. What are the companies that are helping the index? What are the ones that are hurting the index? And like I said, I may be missing one. I apologize if I didn't cover them all, but I kept this one a little bit shorter today. And I think I covered everything I wanted to cover. So again, if you want to get the newsletter delivered to you every Sunday morning, just click on the link that's in the summary of this, or you can always just go to New Cannabis Ventures on Sunday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern, or that's when we publish it, and you can find it there. So have a great week, and I'll be back next week to summarize what's hopefully a better week. Take care.